Hola, chicas. Welcome to Encuentras Your Voice podcast on this first Wednesday of June, Pride Month here in the U.S. and around the world. We're so grateful you have joined us in celebration of Latinos who share their journey's authenticity and full representation of the cultura from their family's heritage to their own success stories. I'm your host, Consuelo Crosby, here every Wednesday at 5 p.m. California Pacific Time, inviting you to relax into these conversations of your next amiga. Resonate with their stories and feel seen, heard, and celebrated. And what a celebration we have today as we kick off Pride with a vibrant and compassionate mujer, Cecilia Romo, a queer Latina award-winning filmmaker whose passion honors the stories of her Mexican heritage, family, and comunidad by bringing them to the big screen. Within a few minutes of listening to Cecilia, you will come to appreciate her strength, but not only for being one of the very few queer Latina filmmakers, the strength to care for others to the point of literally giving a vital part of herself for their survival. And yet, as Cecilia shyly admits, she is a very sensitive mujer who treasures her inner niña, caring for her well-being as her guiding light, her North Star, her beacon. But that little niña was born courageous, sensing an injustice in her surroundings and dedicating herself to disarm tropes and create authentic Latina representation with a queer and female-focused lens. Your jaw will keep dropping as you learn her intimate stories and the shocking reality of lesbian representation in movies today. Cecilia is a proud Mexicana, born in Sacramento, California, who has the grace and humility to put her life on hold when the universe had its big ask for her. She rose to its calling and went on to capture her dream of earning a college degree in film video production and a minor in creative writing, with a focus in directing and writing, even if it meant being a 30-something-year-old in the classroom. Her movie Sueños de mi hija is a grand jury winner at the March on Washington Film Festival, and her most recent movie, Me Porto Bonita, is a recipient of tremendous funding throughout the city of Sacramento, truly highlighting how necessary, loved, and supported Cecilia really is. So let's get to our conversation with Cecilia. Lean into celebrating her, learning who she is, and why she is the perfect person to be creating a diverse and inclusive filmmaking space that highlights the beauty and complexities of marginalized voices through her own storytelling. Welcome, Cecilia, to the Encuentras Your Voice podcast. We are so happy to have you here and very grateful that you're offering your time to share your journey and everything that has brought you to this point today.
Hi, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for the opportunity to come speak to you. And my name is Cecilia Romo. I'm a first-generation Latina, and I am a filmmaker.
Which we are so grateful to be discovering in mass, the Latina filmmakers, with the representation of the comunidad that we didn't know really exists out there. So thank you for making that your passion. We love to honor our ancestry, learn of everyone's heritage, and archive the diaspora that brought us all here. So we'd love for you to share your journey and your family story as part of that.
I really take pride in my family story. My mom is one of 12 kids. She's born in Jalisco, Jalisco. They immigrated here when she was about 11 years old. So her brothers and sisters, her parents immigrated to Texas. They lived there for about 10 years, went to school. She dropped out of school, and with her sisters, her family, they went and worked in the fields. So they went out there, they picked cotton, they picked cabbage, all these different stories, they tell me of working on the fields and the conditions. And then after 10 years being there and, working those jobs, they decided to migrate to California. So they came to Northern California, Sacramento, they started working in like cannery. My mom worked at a nursery, so she has a big love for like flowers and plants.
Oh, I love that.
So I was born here in California, big family. Because as they traveled, they all came together. So they came to California, they settled here. And then, you know, all my cousins, my tios, my tias, like everyone is here. And we're like third generation at this point.
Oh, that's fun. That's fun having that huge family. Was there a large culture that went with that? Or were you the culture as this great, loving, big family?
Yeah, my family, you know, I do hear about other, like, you know, Latinos who, you know, were forced to assimilate and like change their cultures, their beliefs, their traditions. But my family kept it. So, you know, they taught me Spanish, some of my first language, which I still, you know, speak. And I still, I take pride in knowing because I know like a lot of people, they lose that along the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like our cultura, our traditions, everything is, you know, still rooted in Mexico. Like people ask me like, oh, where are you from? I'm like, I'm from Sacramento, but I'm Mexicana.
You bring up something really powerful because it's so quick. Even within the first generation, you can lose it because of the family's feels, which is legit. You know, you never know what kind of toxic environment or mentality is going through. So it's such a beautiful story to have your family just like, well, we're here, we're rocking. We've got 3 generations going strong in a Mexicana heritage. I love it. Yeah. So then what was it like for you? Where did you take this as you were growing up and moving into what is the society beyond the cultura, beyond the familia?
Yeah, growing up, you know, the 90s, there wasn't a lot of representation. There wasn't a lot of resources. And, you know, coming from a low income background, I really felt like being Latina was like a disadvantage because, you know, I didn't see myself on screen. I didn't see the people around me on screen. So that's how I viewed it when I was younger. But as I got older, I realized that it was like my superpower. It was like, oh, like, you know, I'm Latina and I'm all these intersections of myself, being queer, being a woman, identifying as a lesbian. It's like, I realized these are all the things that make me me. And I want to, you know, lean into filmmaking because since I was a little girl, I just loved TV and movies. I was just like obsessed, like everything about it. And it wasn't until I got older in life where I was like, I saw people like Greta Gerwig or, you know, Eva Longoria or Ava DuVernay. Those people were like, oh, they're doing something different and really amplifying women and telling these women's stories. That was like, oh, like, I think I can do that and share my stories and the stories of my family.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel seen. Hopefully that helps other people feel seen within my story and my storytelling.
Yeah. Because you had a lot of development, a lot of evolution for yourself and finding your own authenticity. But it was with confidence, it sounds like, that you brought forward yourself and just your surroundings nurtured who you were. You really didn't have to move into that hold space that some of us find ourselves in, like trying to struggle and figure out our authenticity. So you had that authentic voice coming through already and then wanted to put that into your storytelling. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you like got it perfectly right. Yeah.
So was the storytelling from a young age? Were you compensating for not seeing yourself in this love of TV and movies? Is that what your storytelling was based out of?
Yeah, it's a disappointment and it's like a disservice to people because it's like, how come, like, you know, I can see myself in these white characters or these white stories, but I was like, why can't white people see themselves in Latinos? Or why can't they see, you know, themselves in this immigrant woman journey? Because they're all human stories still, but like you said, they're, you know, authentic to myself or my journey and my evolution.
So when did that move for you? When you're doing these stories, were you always focused on becoming a filmmaker, or did you just get into the creative space and to find yourself further?
No, I always wanted to. Like, when I was younger, I was in a play. It was like a little Shakespeare play in 4th grade, and I was a witch. And that was kind of what like gave me like, oh, like I really like this, but I kept it inside because I was really shy, a shy little girl. So like I kept it inside and share with no one. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go off and do this, and life gets in the way. And for me, that was caregiving for my mom and caregiving for my tia. They needed help. My mom had kidney failure for like over 10 years, which led me to donating my kidney to her, and put these roadblocks in my way. But looking back at all of it, I'm really thankful and I appreciate it because it's given me my story and given me experiences that are true to myself and very special. So after all that, I went back to school after, getting my associates. And I was like, okay, like the pandemic hit. And I was like, I really want to go full in, study film, and really finally pursue it in a real way. And that's kind of what the past 4 years have been.
Oh, that's a beautiful story, but there's a lot of gems in what you just said, and we're so grateful you found your way into your passion of filmmaking. One of the points that I want to just spend moments in is, did you know, in speaking of your mother and the hardship that brought her to her condition, you're a beautiful person for caring for her and keeping her here with us. Did you know that piece about you when here she is in a very chronic condition, needing a kidney, and you provide one of your own? Did you know that about yourself at the time?
I guess not. I was really young. At the start of it, it was my senior year of high school. So it was, I was applying to colleges. I was doing all these things to get into school. And my mom ends up having a stroke. And with that, we discovered that, she got kidney failure. So it was kind of like that blessing of like, okay, this happened. But we learned well to, take care of it. And I put school aside for the moment and then focused on that, and then entered my 20s. And it took all the way until I turned 30 for the chronic condition to get to a point where you needed a kidney. So it gave me the time and the space to like live life and be like, oh, okay, now I'm ready and capable of doing that. Because when I was, a 17-year-old girl going through that, it was like, what guidance do you have or what wisdom do you have at that time? So when it finally came to be like, okay, like her kidney works out 14%, she's going to need a kidney. At that point, I was like, it was no hesitation. It was like, oh, I'm going to go get tested and I'm hoping I'm a match. And it turned out to be, I was a match, and it was like, okay, like, let's get this rolling. And it's like a year of testing. They test so many different parts of you to be able to, because you have to be healthy yourself to be able to give, an organ. And to this day, it's like the biggest blessing I've been able to receive life from her and then give her life. It's very powerful, and I'm really proud of that.
Oh my gosh, I love how you just phrased that. Yeah, instantaneous tears to my eyes. You were so young. That is a really heavy load to carry, especially as a young person, when we tend to push off life and push off problems we see out there as, well, that's their problem and not our own as a teenager. But wow, you carried a lot with you, and you did it with such grace. I really admire that, because it can come within the cultura sometimes, especially as oldest daughter, only daughter. It can be difficult not to have that frustration of having to deal when you, like you said, you were ready to go to college, you had to put it on hold, and then the voices start talking like, I should be fill in the blank, right? You did it with a lot of grace, and God bless you. That's amazing. Such a struggle. And what a story you can bring and the empathy you can bring forward. Do you know that for your mother, was that a condition from her work, her hard laboring work? Is that something that developed, just for our listeners to understand a little bit more about it?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of like, the labor work she's done over her life, coupled with the lack of resources that we give to Latinos. So My mom was also hard of hearing from a young age. She learned to read lips to like just
Wow.
survive, and like, because she would, she could hear, but it was a lack because she had scarlet fever, so it blew her eardrum.
Oh.
And so lack of resources and, education in the medical field,
Mm-hmm.
they would give her medications to, offset pain that she would have from, chronic, lifting, moving,
Mm-hmm.
all the, and not knowing that those medications have consequences on your body. So by the time, that builds up, it's like, oh, well, now you have kidney failure. And
Oh
it's
my
like
gosh.
those things that we don't look at and we don't respect for our immigrants, and
Mm-hmm.
especially immigrants who, don't know the language, don't have the resources,
Mm-hmm.
education,
Mm-hmm.
and they end up with these illnesses later in life.
Mm-hmm.
And I can only imagine, going from my experience, how much that's happening to a lot of other Latinos, coming to this country and not having those things available to them and people not caring for them. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to see that as, a daughter of an immigrant and being like, my family, my mother wasn't given the appropriate care that she should have been given.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
This society is not in step with the Latino community, the Latino cultura at all, because speaking for myself, the cultura is very caring. We care for each other. We care for people is the front and foremost, and it's not money comes first, which is very different than here. And there's also the trust.
Definitely. For me, it's been a learning, journey, being an advocate and just like really paying attention. Yeah, because we are a trusting, loving community that we're always, taking your shirt off your back for someone,
Yes.
or giving them your last meal that you have. Like, it was very entrenched in me. So like I understood that part, but then I also growing up in America, and I understood that part, unfortunately, too. And I think that's where it came in, where I was like, be able to like benefit them and be like, hold up, like, is this really the best thing for them? Because I'm going in, I'm also translating.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, do you want a translator? I'm like, no, like I can translate for them. Like I can do it. Because yeah, you can have those things, but they're not the same as like your family doing it for you and like really watching out for you.
That's a great point. That is a great point to bring up. You really do need an advocate for you. Anybody needs an advocate within the medical system who understands who the person is and therefore what might be best for them. And also what you're sounding like you were the primary caregiver of your mother, what you would be able to handle from whatever they're offering. That's really important, right? To keep ourselves involved in the decision making. Oh, that's such a beautiful story. Such a beautiful highlight of who you are. I love this. Do you think that information, that kind of knowledge, as you're a Latina filmmaker, can you bring that forward? Is this something that becomes part of the story?
Definitely. I always come at like, any story from my personal experiences. So if it comes out of me first, or, my mom first, or my tia or my abuela, like those are the foremost things I think about first. And then like I build out from there. So it's always very personal.
That's beautiful. And like you said, that all of those experiences, those aren't just Latino experiences. Those aren't just your experiences. They're very much a part of the human condition, which makes your filmmaking universal, but spoken from your own authenticity. So you went back to school, which is really admirable. It's a difficult thing to do when you're already living your life for so much. You're, okay, I'm adulting right now. And then going back to school. But you went back intentionally for filmmaking. Does going to school for it easily transfer into becoming one?
Yes and no. People argue that you can do it without it. I really wanted, regardless of what I was going to do film, like I really wanted a degree. I think, my family brought me here to be able to have opportunities and take advantage of those opportunities. So I did want a formal education, a degree, but I also wanted it, it took me so long to get to this point that I was like, I want to do it in something that I'm passionate about and that I'm going to benefit out of. So, like the connections that people I met the things I learned were very beneficial because now, I felt very value aligned collaborators that I want to work with and continue to work with. So it's like, you don't have to go this route, but I really like this route because it gave me the opportunity to like meet people, work on some projects. And then, now as I've graduated, to continue to hone in those those partnerships, collaborations, and move forward with those people because I just admire them as well as people and as artists as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're establishing a community and a network with people within the industry rather than leaving it up to yourself because there's only so much time to go one-on-one and meet these people. So then what was it like for you? How did you start the filmmaking? Was it easy for you? Was it what you thought it was going to be?
I was so nervous and I think everyone talks about for me about imposter syndrome. I don't deserve to be here. I don't know what I'm doing. And especially as a girl, you always see the boys, they have their cameras and they know this and they know that. And you're just so intimidated because you're I didn't have the money growing up, or I didn't have the time, or but I dreamt up all these stories in my head, or I had experiences that was my contribution. So it was very intimidating with that. And also, the age gap with people, it was I'm going back in my 30s. Now it's like you said, I've lived life, I'm adulting, and now I'm trying to go back to school. But I really enjoyed it. It was in the pandemic, so it was a little rough, not being able to do everything in person. But luckily for me, my last semester, everything was in person, and we were able to actually get together and make the film, screen it at a local theater here in Sacramento. And I was able to, pitch and present a script that I wrote and wanted to direct, and then ended up directing. And once I finally got to that place and I felt prepared all those 3 years of doing that, I really felt like it was where I was supposed to be. I enjoyed every single moment of the process. And when it finally came to that point, it was oh, this is what I'm meant to do and be and navigate. And it just lit a fire to be I want to continue doing this.
Awesome. So there was the moment of imposter syndrome, but by the time you just said, you know what, I'm going to do it, did that then go away because it didn't matter because you were doing it and you loved it?
I have this thing where the fear's there, I push through and I'm doing it. So I'm not thinking about it. But then afterwards, then it gets a set in my head. I'm oh God, did I do everything right?
Oh no.
It's nerve wracking, but it's so exciting. You feel like a little kid. You're oh my God, all of these pieces. Get so excited, working with the actors, working with the DP. It's really fulfilling, especially when you're telling authentic and really value-driven stories. And then you have a team of people that really believe in that vision and that those it's oh wow, this is amazing. And then I think afterwards I get nervous. I'm oh my God, the imposter syndrome tries to creep back in. It's did I do right? Was I on point? It's a roller coaster of those emotions.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, adrenaline rushes, but then second guessing yourself, doubting yourself. Yeah. And just because you are out there as one of the very few Latina filmmakers. So that keeps the pressure maybe on a little bit, but in the long run, you're doing it. Yeah, you're loving it. You're making it happen. A little piece before I forget, how would you be caring for yourself? Because you've been doing a lot already in your young life. How are you carrying yourself through these very large waves of adrenaline rushes and doubt? And it sounds exciting. You do have the community even on set, but what are you doing to care for yourself?
I recently had a conversation with a peer, and they said I apply myself and then I cry because I try to let those emotions out.
Get it? Yeah.
And it's true, I apply myself to whatever I'm doing. If it's applying to things or doing the work or whichever area I'm in the moment, I just try to put myself out there and then, come back home and try to like relax and really try to be in the moment. Like spending time with my wife, spending time with my mom and my tia, those relationships I really value, but also like, going and having quiet time and being by myself, because I learned in life, like, you really need that to kind of just like decompress, sort out your feelings, or, or really like say to anyone, like, and what I receive as, just rest and allow yourself to rest and let yourself like give that permission.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it, permission, because we tend to need it from other people to say it's okay for us to stop. I love that, sitting in yourself and not being on, even though it's a thrill, right? You love the rush, you love being on, you love being in charge of getting stuff done, but that stopping and not being on has a lot more impact than we really value at times, because we tend to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing anything, I'm being lazy. Right?
Yeah. And I think from, coming from our ancestors, you kind of, because they were forced to be always going, going, and going. And you're like, oh, like, I'm not allowed to rest. So check yourself and be like, no, like, it's okay to rest. I do like different things. Like, I love live music. So like, I love going to shows and going to concerts and getting that. And then I also love, going into the river or the lake and just, laying out in the sun, like, and just getting, like the nature and silence. It's just like another way to just kind of like, give yourself that permission to just be like, I'm going to enjoy this time. I'm going to sit here and do this, what I want to do, not what people expect of me or want of me. Yeah.
Huge. I love that. Yeah. Lie in the universe. That's what we're here for. These are really highlighting who you are. So now we'd like to see how that translates into the type of stories and movies that you've made. Tell us about the ones you already have on film, literally.
I've been fortunate enough to do, like a couple projects. With school, I was able to do a portrait short doc on one of my passions of the whole kidney journey. I met a local photographer who was only 28 when she received her kidney donation from her best friend. And I really wanted to capture that, and share another woman's journey going through that. Like she had kidney failure her whole childhood.
Unbelievable.
And her childhood best friend ended up giving her a kidney. So did a little project with that, kind of documenting her life and her journey getting her kidney. And then I was able to do my senior capstone, so it was a mi hija, which translates to my daughter's dreams, about, a mother-daughter relationship. I would say loosely based on, my experiences with my mom. My mom's she's a very supportive mom, unlike her in Sueños de mi hija.
Oh, good to know.
It was inspired by some of the little things that, arguments we've had or experiences we've had or things that I've seen in other mothers or, it's a 13-minute film and follows the mother Rosa and the daughter Samantha. And Samantha basically loves like punk rock and wants to be in a punk rock band. She has a band called Las Diablas, so that's all girl band. And then her mother very much disapproves of her.
You think? Yeah, you think? Yeah. That would go for the majority. Just stereotyping us, yes.
Very. And then, but I wanted to make it, a little different, where it was, they lost Armando, which is Samantha's dad and Rosa's husband. And he's passed away. They're dealing with that grief along with these, expectations and sacrifices. And I was very heavily influenced by two films, Lady Bird and Little Women Have Curves. And in those films, the mothers didn't accept their daughter and in the end still didn't accept them. So I wanted to change that narrative, and I wanted Rosa to accept her daughter. So, towards the end, she makes that small leap into accepting her daughter by going to the Battle of the Bands. And just to give you enough for she accepts her, but hopefully you want more.
Yeah, I was waiting for more. I was leaning in, and then what happens?
That's what we've been able to, go show that in film festivals. I've been able to go to Washington, show that, a social justice film festival out there. Georgia Latino Film Festival here in Sacramento and the Bay Area and LA. And, really show the film and get so many people who relate to it and see themselves and, giving flowers to Latinas. And I love hearing you're like, oh my God, like I really relate to that,
Totally.
like, people mom
Totally.
getting those hard.
Did the moms ever say, why do you make us look so bad?
No, they actually, I've heard from moms, they love it.
Awesome.
They're like, oh my, like, I love Rosa, like she's right. Like, and you get those two sides that I just like, which makes me equally happy.
Yeah.
That's like, finally you see, an immigrant or Latina mom being like, oh, like, I see Rosa and I agree with her. So like they see themselves finally. They're not, just like a janitor in the background or a cleaning lady.
Yeah.
They're like, that's Latina woman that's very relatable. And it's been such a joy and a privilege. But it makes me really proud to be able to like that I was able to do that. And our team was so small, it was like a 6-person team. I also casted my mom as a abuelita in the film. And even though she doesn't have a line, her gesture in the film like just screams volumes and everyone always loves her too. And I was like, yeah, that's my mom. I casted her as abuelita.
She's going to have a third career going here pretty soon. I love that. Oh my goodness. I love that. And this is something I'm learning as we just happen to have a lot of filmmakers on this season. And I really regret not going to more film festivals in order to be able to see these films. Is it possible to see your film now outside of the film festivals?
We're wrapping up the film festival this year, so I'm hoping when we finish that, I'll be able to, put it online and then be able to, have the public see it. And I'm working on more opportunities to show it to people. So, like, yes, there will be more opportunity to see it.
More
so
platforms coming.
Exactly. Looking for the more platforms to see it and share it. And just working hard, behind the scenes to be able to amplify that. My goal is to do that and then also take it as a proof of concept. And I currently just finished, my first draft to make it into like an actual feature film.
Oh, congratulations. Wow. Oh, that's exciting. Yeah, I love that. Well, congratulations on moving through the film festivals because you have to get accepted into the film festival and getting it out there and wanting that. We're manifesting it right here. It's going out around the world. We're manifesting this ability to show it worldwide, have it on accessible platforms, and take it to a full feature. Okay, Rosa's coming full circle. Now we get to find out, right? Now we get to find out what happens. Yeah. Oh, I love it.
Yes, then we get to see everything else.
I love that. Yeah, that's exciting. I'm getting excited now. This is where you lean in, but I love how you just said midway through all of that you can see the 180 completely different mindset of how we see Latinas in mainstream media versus how it is when we're making our own stories, telling our own narrative, filming our own lives, right? Is a huge difference. Not relegated to the gender, even though it could be a story of their life as farm workers. It's not a side note. It's really palpable, and the awareness goes way up of why it's so important, right? Why it's so important to create these films.
Yeah, because it's really hard to see this like narrative still to this day of like, being a prostitute or being a labor worker or being a cleaning lady and that just being them. And I think we're way more complex than that. And I know I was raised by a village of women that it's like they're more than that. Like they're the backbone, they are everything.
Latinas, matriarchs. Yeah.
Yeah, like everything I've learned in life is like I learned from the women and the multiple women in my life and their different personalities. They're not just this one, Maria the cleaning lady. There is a spectrum of us from different colors to different accents to different stories behind them. And even like with Rosa, I did base her off my mom and then she, she is a labor worker, but that's in the background. Right. It's not the forefront. Like this is who she is. That just happens to be her job.
Exactly, which is what we really emphasize here on the podcast and why we ask so much of who you are up front, because who you are is what's important. Who you are is your legacy, is your narrative. What you do is just something in passing. It doesn't define who you are. You don't, make or break by what you do. It's really a small component. I want to meet your mom now. Are there additional stories that you're bringing forward?
Yeah, I have a bunch of other stories I'm working on. And then currently I'm in pre-production for my next short film. This one follows two Latina best friends. And basically, a queer love story. It's these two best friends named Lorena and Valentina. Valentina recently goes through a breakup. When you go through a breakup, you don't really want to do anything. And her best friend, Lorena, is really rambunctious, spicy, very extroverted girl who just wants to help her friend out, but at the same time is dealing with her feelings for her. She kind of has romantic feelings and tries to her feelings as they go on this, little day journey of having fun, getting revenge on the ex, and then being like, hey, surprise, I love you. It's a title, Me Porto Bonita.
Oh.
So, them behaving pretty in every way,
Yeah, yeah.
And very fortunate that I have a bigger team this time. So everyone who worked on Sueños is coming on for this one, and we'll be able to add more people to the team and get a wonderful Latina cast. And we'll be shooting in May, and then, sending it out to film festivals as well. And it's been a real nice journey of crowdfunding, receiving grants, and just building the community and building a network.
I love the power behind that, right? The power of community, of why you don't leave yourself alone in it, and to believe that people want you to succeed, people will help you succeed. As a queer Latina in the filmmaking industry, what is that like? Or what are your experiences so far in stepping out there? You're received in a way of, where's this storyline been? Where's this voice been for us? Or is there still some old cultura going, I don't know about this?
I still to this day get nervous because you just don't know how people are going to react. Because I have such a loving, accepting family, and my mom and my tias, they're in their 70s, they've been able to unlearn a lot of things. I'm just witnessing me and, me being me, which is really beautiful. But I still get nervous in, other spaces because I'm like, how are they going to react?
Right.
So far, it's been positive. I haven't had any negative experiences, fortunately. I'm still only if not the only one, the very few of them.
Wow.
So it's either, I'm in spaces where it's for women or women of color. So it feels, very welcoming. And a lot of times I'm still the only queer person or one of the few. Or I am in a space where the whole lineup is men. And I'm the only woman, the only Latina, and the only queer person.
It's really hard being the first or one of the few.
Yeah.
But you have the personality of I still have to do this. You have that bold courage to just, I'm going to do this. With a beautiful family behind you as support. But yeah, you're all alone in it. It's not as though you're going to have people who literally understand what it's like, but they're there for you at the same time. Are you having generations of women coming forward saying there was never a place for this queer Latina love story to occur?
Whoever I share it to, is really excited about it. They see the humanity in it. Again, it's a queer Latina story, which we don't really have a lot of either. I don't know if you're familiar with queer stories or the lesbian canon, but a lot of stories in lesbian films, TV shows, it always ends in the lesbian character or bisexual character either turning straight again, quote unquote, or they kill them off a lot. And that's a trope that's a continuous trope for over 100 years.
No effing way.
Yeah,
Whoa.
there's like
Wait.
academic papers and like,
Why is this a thing? Oh my God. Is this like Disney killing off the mothers all the time?
yes,
Like, oh my
kind of
God.
like that. It's just like
I didn't
it's
know.
a disappointing, role.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm a little pissed off. What?
I'm very like passionate about these things because it's myself growing up watching all these characters and like, oh, I finally see myself and the person falls in love or they, they find someone. And then like the next episode is like, they get shot or they die. It's like, I mean, what am I supposed to think of my value when I see the characters keep dying and getting killed? And yeah, it's a continuing trope that I was like, I am tired of feeling traumatic and tired of seeing my favorite characters on TV just die. And I know they're characters, but as we know with media, they're a representation, they're a reflection of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Again, these girls can be Latina, they can be queer, and then not die at the end. They can, live a happy life. They can be complex. They can have hard relationships, and they can exist because, we exist in the world. And that's the reality of it.
Oh, I'm so glad we opened that door because I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I was trying to think. It's so difficult in mainstream to even find the storyline, therefore not know that this is a commonality. And you're right. It's representation. It sends a very specific message when you're killing off the person or they're going straight again. If you're in a community that won't allow it, it can wear you down. It never ceases to amaze me how archaic, and I don't even think it's primitive because I can't see this as being original to humans, but that archaic bias and fear, that's what it is. Fear of not wanting to understand.
There's a multitude of stories that, need and should be told. And I'm glad to see other people as well bringing that to light, because we all have, different experiences and those things that's like, point of views. They need to come to light. And if we're not going to be able to get those opportunities, we have to make those opportunities ourselves. I think right now I feel privileged and honored, in a space and a time where I think there's a lot of people, maybe because like there was so many of us, and, all of us like first gen kids or second gen, like we're going to go tell our family stories. We're going to go, share these things. They made the first step of coming to America. And I guess if you want to argue, coming back to our own land.
Yes, definitely.
But there's those first steps of theirs, and we're going to, take it further and shine that light on those stories that deserve to be told, that have been, just kind of in the shadows and just trying to keep us down. And we're tired of, being kept down. And I think with not only the time of as like individuals, but in a specific time right now with like community and accessibility to like technology makes a big game changer to opposed to like even 10 years ago when there wasn't accessibility to those things, to have like a camera in your hand.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a very powerful time. It's like the planets have aligned though, because there is the population expansion and global immigration expansion. And then, like you said, just having social media, as much as we hate it, we need it so that we can hear each other's stories and realize you're not alone in it. Because I think that was the very difficult part. And what did keep you quiet is that you didn't necessarily have a community all around you growing up, and you often were the only one. Finding out about you, how would we have done it before?
Exactly.
20 years ago, nobody would know. And it's so hopeful. It feels so hopeful to me, realizing that all of these people that I've met exist, the power of what they're doing, just knowing it makes you raise the bar a little bit, like takes off that heavy blanket that we feel like we're under sometimes, like, oh, it's always going to be this way. It's never going to change. And then you realize, oh no, there's all these books written, there's movies made, there's people speaking out, there's creatives making it happen, and learning about that really unifies. But I would just love, and I'm going to make it happen, to host. I would love to host Latino filmmakers to just bring these films so that we can all watch them. I didn't realize how difficult it is to access them if, again, mainstream doesn't pick it up.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we're going to make a party of it.
Yeah, it's like that, the thing of like, if they're not going to come, then we're going to do it ourselves and we're going to make it 10 times better.
Yes. I am not sorry if anybody out there loves it, but we're not going to have Diet Coke and popcorn. You can have that at the regular theaters. We're going to have vino and empanadas, maybe pupusas. I mean, you name it, bring it. Yeah, it's going to be completely different. And there's going to be a party after. That is why we love you all, but we're coming for the party too. Yes, it's going to be completely different. And why hasn't this been done? So come on, everyone out there, join me.
I believe you, and I believe this will happen. We will say here first, and then it will happen.
We like to ask about your cafecito drinker.
Oh my God.
And if so, what's your favorite cafecito flavor?
Oh my God, yes.
Because you still are the doer and you're always out there getting stuff done. So it's cafecito driven.
I love my cafecito so much. Since a little girl, I don't know if it's like a Latino thing, but like I used to sit around the table with my padrinos and my tios and my tias, and I would be the only kid there because I was the youngest out of all my cousins. So like I spent a lot of time with older people.
The older people.
They would serve me my little coffee with them, and I was like 4 or 5 years old. So it started very young.
Yes.
And it's something I, grew up with. And I would go with my madrina, I would go with my tia Pancha, and my mom, and now I consider myself, what's that word where you're like a connoisseur? Everywhere I go like, if not just one, like 2 or 3 coffee shops. And I'm really big on like lattes. So they're hot or cold. I really like it depends where I go. So I can be like, I really love a lavender latte. If they don't have a lavender, I like to do like a caramel.
Is there a place in Sacramento that just makes your favorite lavender lattes?
No, there's, they don't do a lavender, but there's a coffee shop in Sacramento called The Mill, and they make a wildflower, like wirewood latte. And I don't know what flower it is, but it's so delicious. It's very like creamy and smooth. And they only have it in the spring.
Oh.
Yeah, so in the spring.
That's so legit.
I'm always there. Yeah.
So that's your highest production period is spring?
Like, and how lavender, for the most part, it's like, most places, but it's always better when it's like a homemade syrup.
Oh. Ooh, that's sounding delicious now. Okay, is there Latina entrepreneurs get on that? Homemade syrups for the lattes. Yeah. Think of all the flavors that would come into that. Oh my God. If they were like Stephanie de la Cruz, she makes her ice cream helados based on the Mexican flavors from her cultura. So think about the cafecito syrups that would just be with the flavors of the cultura. That would be delicious.
I've had some, I went to some Latino coffee shops where it's like they do the pan dulce actually they have one in Sacramento where they do an horchata cold brew. I think it's called Camellia.
Oh.
That
would be addicting. That
one's really good. It's really smooth. It's very that cold brew kind of like smoothness to it. I'd also have like rose lattes. You see, I can just because I just love
coffee. This is your side hustle?
Yeah. I would always visit one of my tias, Pancha, and we would, have our cafecito at 5 in the afternoon and have our pan and kind of just like, chismear and just like.
Yes. As it should be. As it should be, right? Oh, I love the whole vibe of that. You got to work one of those scenes. Is that in one of your movies, a scene like that? I love it.
Actually in Sueños we have where the mother-daughter, they get in an argument in the kitchen, and the mom, Rosa, and the abuelita are both having café with
pan dulces. Yeah, I love it. See, I love it. Which brings me back center. I'm loving this conversation. We could have a whole podcast just on cafecitos. But it brings me back in center. I'm glad you brought Sueños up. Because you say you were Spanish speaking first, definitely immersion in your culture, and having these beautiful narratives of the movies. Do the movies bring Spanish dialogue in then as their natural conversational style?
Yeah. So for Sueños, it's mostly in Spanish. It's heavily in Spanish. So Rosa mainly speaks in Spanish, and that's, subtitled, and the duality of being Latino in American culture. Samantha's answers are in English. Because my experience is I speak both, but there's certain times where you speak one over the other. And there's a lot of times where you do the Spanglish. So I incorporate that too. So there'll be times when, Rosa pops up with a little English, or depending how mad she is, she'll be in Spanish, I pick up on those things. Like if I'm in trouble, it's, Cecilia Romo.
Yeah. Oh.
But if it's, we're just having fun. It's Ceci, it's very, so those things do come up in the storytelling and in the way I write the dialogue. Yeah.
It's so true. It's so authentic. It makes it real, because I think if that were not part of it, it just wouldn't be real. At that point, it's like, okay, well, and it doesn't translate. There's so many situations and expressions and ways of saying things that just don't translate. And then if they don't translate, it doesn't even make sense at that point. It's like it's lost. The expression, the emotion, the intent is lost. I see that the most in when I'm listening to authors' books and audios form.
I never thought of that. That is really, it's a good point.
It really is impactful because it makes you laugh. It makes you laugh, or it makes you like you're saying, like, they're in trouble. But you already know, therefore the emotion's already coming up when you hear how it's expressed in the original language. So I love that.
Yeah, because there's my wife is actually, Caucasian, and when we first met, she'll be like, "Why are you guys screaming?" And I was like, "We're not screaming, we're just talking." And then those things that translate that for you it's normal, but for people looking in and experiencing it for the first time, they're like, "Whoa, like this is different." And then you become aware, and you're like, "Oh, like I guess it is different." So like things like, I learn about myself through other people's eyes. I'm like, oh, like this is, important to put, because like we do react or talk in certain ways. It can be, our volume's a little higher and compared to, other ethnicities or races or, their cultura, like it is very.
Yeah. Upbringing.
Yeah. I never thought about the books of like, that would make a difference, because how you're hearing it and experiencing it, opposed to you're reading things that you imagine in your head. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. You put your own personality into it. I did it first for Yasmin Ramirez's book, Andale Prieta. That's the first time I did it. And that one's about her abuela and her Ita. She had the relationship because her Ita raised her while her mom was working so hard. And emotionally completely different. Because I have the book. I have my little stack. There you go. Latina author stack. But so I started reading it. But I thought, I'd like to have this all the time, like around me, and immerse myself. And so I tried the audio, and it was completely different experience. So really valuable.
Yeah. I think it really makes a difference. And you reminded me of something that, bringing that up, I think there's so many cracks and things that are still not solved to this day. In the film, we did a scene where Rosa looks at old photos of her husband, Armando, and her daughter. And at the time, I just thought, oh, we'll get stock footage. And when I looked up stock footage, Latinos did not exist in stock footage.
Nope.
And I was blown away, because I was like, oh my God, they don't exist in stock footage. So like all these, like you're saying, like the audiobooks, the stock footage is like, how do we not exist in these things? And so, we had to film. I asked one of my friend's husbands, like, hey, can you dress up? And we took photos of him. Use it as, the reference. But yeah, things don't exist for us. And And it's like, wow, we are in the year 20, at the time it's 2022, but now, still, it's like we don't have these things that exist for white people. And it's like,
right. There's a huge need for the narrative, for the legacy, for the history, not to get lost, not to be whitewashed, literally.
yeah,
Right? They're just like, again, we have to shift our thinking that we're not here to join the system. There's such a need.
A huge need in every single category. And the more I'm exposed to these things, I'm like, oh my God, like it doesn't exist. And like, how can I be of help or of service and, finding someone who wants to do this? Like yourself, you're like, how many, Latina podcast people are there? That's something like I am equally passionate about, is like having those other intersections of these people, but like we need those people as well. And probably, these little girls or like women don't know that there's a lack of that, and they could be doing that. And that could be, a career, that could be a passion, and I'd be able to do that and shed light on those things for like little girls like myself who didn't know. You're like, these things are possible and you can go do them. And don't let that white boy or whoever it is, like they get all the jobs. And I know like you can be there. You might be the first one or the only one, but that will pave the way for other people. Just like, I believe my mom paved the way for me.
I love asking this question. I used to do it randomly. Now I do it all the time. So we've learned a lot about you, both as a person, a beautiful human, and as a filmmaker. But what is something we wouldn't guess about you?
Oh my God. Wouldn't guess me.
Are you doing imposter syndrome sucking guessing right now?
Like I guess like I am, because of the life I've lived and experiences I've experienced. I think people have this perception that I am very, maybe don't have feelings or very strong or like, which, can be true, like very resilient and strong, but I'm very sensitive inside. I still carry that little girl that wondered about the world and cared of people, how they felt, or like, does that make sense?
Absolutely. No, and I think that's huge because we don't necessarily know, especially you're right. You've been such the strong primary caregiver. You're the doer. You're in charge on the set for your filmmaking. Everyone in this society would assume, wrongfully so, that you're just the doer and, the achiever and go after it. And it's really valuable that you shared that with us, that you are this sensitive little niña, that you keep the vulnerability close and you go back to it. So she's very close to the surface.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Bianca Alba, one of the Latina travelers who can figure stuff out for us, she shared something very similar when I asked her the question. She says, I'm just a mushy love person. I love falling in love. And it's like, oh, it's really valuable to learn of someone. It just gets us closer to you. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Yes.
Oh my gosh, Cecilia, this has been so much fun, informative, compassionate. You're a beautiful, beautiful soul. So blessed that your family's all well and so joyous in its gathering, and has created you this opportunity to just go ahead and live your life with this purpose and passion to show the Latinidad on film across all storylines. We're very grateful for having you here today. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you so much. I'm excited and just honored to have met you and have these discussions, and thank you for the time. And I had so much fun. I love the thoughtful questions, and the Cafecito was I was like, oh my God. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Did you see any of that conversation coming? From the unbelievable ask of stepping forward to give her kidney to her ailing mother, and ultimately cast her in the Sueños movie, to the crazy, wicked trope of lesbian characters always being killed off in mainstream media. It's amazing what we learn here every week from our amigas out there in the world. And Cecilia, such a beautiful, compassionate soul who gets it done for herself and others, all the while highlighting how much of our cultura representation is needed in every aspect of creating media platforms, She really emphasizes how we needn't whitewash ourselves and our stories to fit into the existing media systems, but instead create our own from start to finish. If you ever feel like there isn't a need for what your passion is, take a moment to appreciate how much your knowledge, your stories, dedication is needed to fully represent the cultura on a daily basis. Now, we got so chatty about all the ideals of life that we skipped highlighting Cecilia's social media handles and her production company, Algo Bueno Productions. So please take a look on Instagram, follow and support Cecilia on her personal profile at @Roms and on the company profile at Algo Bueno Productions. You can see all that in the show notes, so take a look at the links, and we are definitely going to make a film event happen so that more of us can appreciate and celebrate the amazing films already made by Latina filmmakers. It's intolerable to know that these beautiful movies exist, the stories they tell and the actors that portray them, yet we have no way of seeing them unless the current day mainstream media picks them up. And join us next week as we bring back an episode from last year with Angelica Vega, a queer Latina from Colombia who spontaneously shared her intimate story with me while I was traveling in Medellin, Colombia. Her heart-wrenching story of being ostracized from her familia for coming out to her mother strikes pain in your heart and makes us realize how much more we need to step up and become aware of the LGBTQ comunidad, the threat they still experience, and to advocate for a society of love, protection, and celebration. Begin to do your part now by providing any platform you know of to highlight and promote in pride. Step into your truth, ladies. Ciao. We love that you have subscribed to this podcast and continue to champion women who understand the life of all things Latina. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Encuentras Your Voice podcast so you don't miss a single episode. They will automatically drop into your listening device each week. And we'd really, really appreciate if you take a moment to add to the reviews that we already have. Tell us what you like, tell us what you're hoping to hear, and we will get there. Share this with your friends and family to help us grow our comunidad, and keep following us on our social media. To Encuentras Your Voice, we are so grateful to you for helping us grow this community and would love to learn of all the amazing Latinas who you know are creating the world we thrive in. So reach out to me on social media at Encuentras Your Voice, and let's keep leaning into our authenticity in pride. Help us make Encuentras Your Voice the place where you are 100% represented.